this section here with the voice selectors and everything, you got to take out several screws here, here. There's a couple back there. I had this last one here just holding it in place. And once you do that, the assembly will mostly be free. Now, this wire right here, which goes to the on bus bar for the lower keys, I'm going to go ahead and slide it right out with the assembly as I take it off. I don't know if you'll be able to slide yours out like that, but fortunately I have enough slack that I can do that. I'm going to set that down, slide that out. There we go. I can rotate this around. There's our assembly. Now, my goal here is to get to the conductors that are down under here, and that's where I'm having issues with scratchiness. Now, it's a little complicated. This plate is held on by 4 screws, 1, 2, 3, and 4, but this board is held on by 2 screws that you can only access from this side, and it's glued on. To add to the problems, this wire right here is soldered to the on switch there, and as you turn it, it's liable to break like mine did there. So what I'm going to recommend is desolder it from the on base volume switch under here, desolder it completely, and then we'll see how much better we can access the area we're really trying to clean. Now that I've got that unsoldered, I can just flip this right over, and here are the contacts which are giving me problems. Now, looking at this, see some other issues. There's a piece of felt down under there which is actually sticking to these rockers, and the rockers themselves are kind of out of whack. I believe it's because this pin has come out of its slot there. So I'm gonna do a bit of disassembly here, but I'm not going to be taking this board off of the back because, like I said, not only is it screwed on, it's glued on. So I'm just going to leave that right where it's at. Now the rockers themselves are they got these little copper springs on them to give it the sort of feel, the detent when you flip it back and forth. But that's putting pressure on the pin that goes through it. So I'm actually going to remove all 6 of these and set them aside so that the rockers will be free. And actually, as I'm getting into this, I'm realizing I don't even have to take them all the way off. Just loosen the screws a little bit, and then the springs will be loose enough that it'll take all the pressure off. So that's a bit of a time-saving tip for you, and probably space-saving depending on how messy your workshop is. Now that the pressure is off on all these rockers, it's just a simple matter of grabbing the side of the pin that's sticking out on the side, working it out a little bit, and then it slides right out, and these come right off very easily. Maybe you shouldn't drop it down into the organ machine, but that's all right. Set those aside on a table instead. And see they're catching on the felt back here, so I'm going to have to work with that a little bit, but that's the general process. Yeah, you might have this problem too. The felt had a glue on the back side, and the glue seeped through the felt, and now the felt is actually glued to the rocker, and yeah, should be really careful with that. I might replace that felt with a piece of new, because you see it's falling apart. Let's see. That's the last one. All right. This one got a little bent. We're gonna have to carefully bend that back into shape. As you see, the this felt is toast. We're gonna have to replace that with something new. I'm gonna go ahead and take it off, but I'm gonna keep it so I can get a new one that's the right size. There we go. And these are the contacts that I'm going to clean up really nice. And I press down the rocker on one side, right here when the rocker's rocked, I guess, down. The contact hits this pencil. So we're working with this one. Yeah, when it's down, the contact hits the upper one. And when you press the top side, it presses this down and makes contact with the lower one, if everything's working right. This one had some issues, so we're going to fix it. All right, I've got this whole situation cleaned up a lot. Got all the contacts cleaned. I replaced the felt both here and back here. Now I had an issue where this conductor right here was not making the connection when I turned the flutes on. This conductor right here was too far over that way. You see how I bend it that way makes the connection. That's the easiest way to adjust these if you're having a problem. Turn this left and move this left and right. And now that I got this all adjusted, I got to re-solder this wire down here as I bend this back down. I'll make that connection again. Sorry, that one down there. And we'll get this thing all reinstalled. All right, got it all back together. It's the rocker's all cleaned up, and flute works right, brass, and when you put them all together, sounded great. Now the bass, the chords work. The bass works, but you might not be able to hear it. It's really quiet, and the vibrato, nothing. No vibrato at all. Now, delving into the schematic, it turns out that the module, these are all the modules back here, one for each voice. This one on the far left with the little blue capacitors, that's the one that's called bass low C divider vibrato oscillator. And the fact that the bass is so quiet and the vibrato is non-existent suggests to me that that's where I need to look. I'm going to zoom in a little bit and we're going to talk about that. Okay, this module right here is the module that the schematics call the bass, low C divider, and vibrato oscillator. It's held in with one screw, and these are pinch contacts down here. As you can see, it's different from the other voice modules, and it has these electrolytic capacitors. Now, in my experience, these things do not last 5 decades. I'm going to remove this module and test those capacitors. As I do it, I'm going to pull with this hand and push with a screwdriver down here. And as I wiggle it carefully, it should come right out. A little hard to see. Okay. You see down here toward the bottom. There we go. Right out, and on the underside you see the contacts down here, and it's just these things just sort of pinch and hold it in place. Before I put it back, I'm going to clean those up. But right now we're going to test these capacitors. All right, what I'm going to do here is check these 3 capacitors. These are electrolytic capacitors, and being as old as they are, which is about 50 years old, the electrolyte has probably evaporated, which means they don't really work that well anymore. Right now, the resistance across them is infinite because these aren't attached. But if I clip this on here, it should jump for a second and then go back to infinity. Well, that one seemed to work okay. There we go. Yeah, I tested it a minute ago, and this is what I was getting. You're getting conductance across that. That's a sign that it's no longer any good. We're going to check the next one also. This one went, yeah, when I checked it a minute ago also, I was getting some conductance across it. Yeah. And this third one, actually, the lead broke off. There's the old lead. It was already detached from there, and but even if I were to test it like this, a minute ago I was getting some, yeah, there we go, some conductance across it. So all 3 of these are bad. This one's probably also bad, as are the other 2 that are on the main machine. So I'm going to replace all 6 of those electrolytic capacitors with new, and we'll see
if it fixes the problem.
All right, I've replaced 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 electrolytic capacitors with new, and sounds good. I'm going to turn on the vibrato. All right. Sounds good, except there's one issue. Down here on the bass, chords work fine, but when I get to the very last note, I don't know how well you can hear that. I'm going to turn it up. Got nothing there. I'm not sure what's going on, but and when I flip the vibrato, yeah, there's something going on there, so I'm going to have to figure that one out. But generally, we're almost there, y'all. Woo, that's loud. All right, next step.